Eu estou aqui com um convidado super especial, o cara que criou a rede social que ficou mais popular no Brasil de todos os tempos, que é o Orkut.
These services gave user the power to influence others, whether their post became viral or popular. Just write a prompt and it will generate the perfect image or the perfect video. Our focus right now is to create an app that actually makes a difference in people's lives.
Começa mais um GigaCast, hoje estou aqui com um convidado super especial, o cara que criou a rede social que ficou mais popular no Brasil de todos os tempos, que é o Orkut, né? Quem não tem saudade daquele depoimento, não tem saudade daquele recado. E aqui hoje vai ser a primeira entrevista em inglês do GigaCast, porque estou aqui com o Orkut, o fundador do Orkut. Hi Orkut, so nice to meet you here. And man, so excited to hear your story.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. So I'm going to start by reading the bio that you sent me, because a bunch of stuff that I didn't know. So as I said in Portuguese, you're very well known for building Orkut. But Orkut, what's the right way to pronounce your surname?
It's Büyükkökten,
Büyükkökten?
Turkish.
Büyükkökten is a well-known social pioneer and scientist with both a master's and PhD in computer science from Stanford University. At Stanford, he launched the first of his 4 successful social network, Club Nexus. He has deep experience across social media and mobile technologies that lead to the large-scale adoption of Orkut.com. The social network gathered over 300 million users worldwide and at its peak accounted for 50% of Google's page views. He dedicated his life to bringing people together with technology and continues to inspire people around the world to come together and make authentic connections. Fun fact, Orkut is a self-confessed nerd and a fan of sci-fi and comics. He is also a certified bartender and massage therapist. He lives in San Francisco and is known for hosting lively parties. Wow, I want to go to these parties.
My friend wrote that bio, by the way.
No, I loved it, man.
Thank you.
And let me ask you, man, so since you mentioned a little bit of your hobbies, man, like the sci-fi and stuff, let's talk about like the early beginnings, you know, like you were born in Turkey?
I was born in Turkey, and when I turned 1 year old, my parents moved to Germany.
Oh.
So I grew up in Germany. I was there until I turned 9, and then they moved back to Turkey.
Oh, yeah, and why did they move to Germany?
My dad is a surgeon. He was like practicing his profession.
Oh, really? A surgeon?
Yeah, ear,
Oh, I
nose,
see.
throat, ENT.
Oh, interesting. And then your mom as well?
My mom is a teacher.
Your teacher,
Yeah.
okay. Did she teach in Germany as well, or?
No.
Oh, nice, man. And while you were there, like, were the early days of your like childhood and stuff, like, do you feel like it made you a lot of your personality, or not much? How did you feel like it influenced you?
Definitely. So when I was in Germany, I was a Turkish boy in a class full of blondes, and oftentimes I felt like I didn't fit in. For instance, at the house we would have slippers. It's a very German thing, right? But then we celebrated New Year's over Christmas because we're Turkish. So my whole life, my parents moved around, and as a result, I was exposed to different cultures, and oftentimes I had to make connections and new friendships from scratch. And that exposure to different communities and cultures gave me a unique perspective on identity, belonging, and community.
Wow, that's so interesting, man. So while you moved around like to different cities as well, while you were like when you were
Countries.
no country. So
Yeah.
you went like to Germany, went back to Turkey. Like, what was the whole journey of countries?
It was interesting. So in Germany, I had a Turkish accent.
What is
When my
that?
parents moved back to Turkey, I had a German accent.
Ah, okay.
And then I came to the United States for college, and I have a Turkish-German accent. So people can never figure out like where to put me because I've been around in so many places.
Yes, exactly. But where do you think like it informed most of your personality? Like, if someone that knows you very well would say that like you're more a German or more Turkish, you think?
But I think it's both. I'm really methodical. I'm super organized, and I'm like very logical, like a German. But I'm also very emotional. I have a lot of empathy, and I'm very passionate. I truly care about community and friendships and connections. That's very Turkish, and actually also Brazilian.
Yes, also. I feel a lot of reference. Hey man, while you were studying, who were you in school? Like, you were the guy that like would sit in front and like ask all the questions, you know, the guy that wouldn't even pay attention to the class, just study by himself. Like, what was your persona?
I was a nerd. I loved school. I loved math, science, engineering. When I was in 4th grade, I started to learn programming. and it was always like a big passion. And that journey continued after college, where I continued with like master's and PhD in computer science.
And how did you start? Like, was it like a spark of curiosity? Did someone kind of like show you computer science? Like, what was the ignition?
Oh, that's a good one. I think Star Wars is what inspired,
Star Wars.
it all. So we watched the epic saga as kids with my brother, and it made us dream of how technologies will change our futures. And we asked our parents to get like a computer, and instead of like playing video games, we got really curious about programming. And my brother taught me how to program in basic and assembly language. And from then on, I've been programming since.
And your brother is older?
He's 4.5 years older.
Oh, 4.5 years older. So he kind of like started programming first, and you both had this inspiration by Star Wars, and then he kind of like, Orkut, check this out. You have to do this. And what were like some early projects that you did that were?
So my friends would go out to the movies, play soccer, and I would be at home writing video games, and then I would invite them to play together. I wrote video games. I wrote like paint programs. I wrote a word processor.
What were your video games? Like, what were they like?
It's like turn-based strategy mostly, because the computer processing power was very limited at the time. I mean, the computer was a ZX Spectrum that had 48 kilobytes of memory.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
like Snake kind of vibes almost?
Yeah, like it's almost like Snake, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Are you still a gamer today or no?
I am a gamer.
Yeah? What do you play?
I love RPGs.
Yeah?
I love first action games. I love adventure games, a whole variety.
Oh man, that's awesome. I'm the scum of the games. I play some phone games, mobile games, pay to win kind of vibes, that give me easy dopamine.
Oh, that's one thing I never done actually. I don't play mobile games.
Never fell to mobile games. Good call, man. Man, what was the first game that I ever spent money? It was on Orkut, man.
Oh, amazing.
It was the Colheita Feliz, the Happy Harvest. Yeah, they never came back after that point, man.
That's like Farmville, right?
Yeah, like Farmville. It was like the early versions of Farmville. It was super fun. Yeah, and then like turning back to your story. So you started coding like these early projects. And how about in high school? Like you came to Stanford. Like where did that come from? Like was that normal?
So in high school, I had 2 of my programs published in a computer magazine.
Oh, nice.
And that's when I decided I want to be a computer scientist. So we have a national universal entrance exam, and all my top choices were engineering schools. So I went to study computer science at Bilkent in Ankara.
And like what were other schools that you kind of like considered overall?
It was all like engineering. My priority was like computer science and electrical engineering, and then like industrial engineering.
Oh, I see. And then like once you got there, like what was the challenge you expected it to be? Like what was your?
Oh, it was kind of like interesting. When I started college, I was learning like C, C++, and they were teaching us like Pascal. So I had like so much like experience because I've been programming since I was 8 years old, and it was really easy for me.
A lot of people were just starting, right? So
They were just starting to learn how to program.
did you become like a teacher assistant or something, or not even?
I would help my classmates tremendously with like programming. And
Would you take like most of the classes in computer science, or since you were like much ahead than other people, you take like classes in other stuff that you were maybe curious in, or what was your strategy?
yeah, I took like tennis classes, and there's like mandatory classes like history, physics, math, and so on.
I see. So mostly computer science.
Right, and I got really interested in teaching, so I started teaching computers to high school kids for like underprivileged schools.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I also started teaching computers like Unix to students at college who are not computer science majors.
So that they could use more computers.
That's correct.
Oh, I see. And how did this start? Like this, when you were teaching to the community kids and stuff. Like, how did that start? Was it a project that you started, that you like joined?
There was a project that was helping underserved communities, especially high schools and kids. And when you're in high school, if you're applying for a job right after, if you know how to use computers, that gives like a huge advantage.
Amazing.
So I joined this program and started like teaching computers.
In what year was this? You think?
Uh,
So I'm just trying to figure out what kind of computers
Like-
were kids using and stuff.
it was like PCs.
Oh yeah,
But
okay.
it was like floppy disks, with Windows, but still very limited.
Oh, nice, man. No, and at this point, like, kind of like using computers was the skill, right? Today's like much more common, but at this point, like, I remember that when I was younger, I would go to like the school to learn how to type without looking at the keyboards and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the first time a friend of mine showed like Mosaic on a computer, and I was like, oh my God, that's going to change the world. You know what happened after, right? Like Mosaic, Netscape, Internet Explorer, and then we are all online.
And at this point, you were like full programmer, like knew all the way around the web and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that I read that was very interesting is that like the web had like a transition of how you access information, right? In the early days, it was mostly like portals, right? So like these portals would find like all these places, and then kind of like Google came along, and then the social movement came along where like other people will tell you what kind of content you should be looking at and do this. Like how was this whole transition for you, like in all these parts of the web changing over time, and how you as a programmer saw these opportunities and act on them?
I think like back in the day, like Yahoo was a big part of our lives, the Yahoo portal, right? That's where we would find like pages and links according to our interests. And then search became huge, and there was like a huge competition between like Yahoo, and then like Google started and Microsoft Search. And search became the future because that's how we accessed information.
Were you working at Google at some point, right?
That's correct.
And how was that journey? Like okay, let's go back from to college. Like, what was your first job, first internship?
So
or
after
something?
college, I decided to continue my studies. So I applied for a PhD in the United States. And I moved to the United States to do a PhD in computer science at Stanford University. And after I graduated, I joined Google, and that's how my career started outside of school.
And you didn't take any internships while you were in college.
I did actually, and in college I did an internship for Microsoft in Istanbul actually,
Oh, interesting.
and I was their first intern.
Of Microsoft in Istanbul?
Yeah.
Oh, nice, man. But you didn't want to continue afterwards?
Oh, then I continued with my graduate studies, so that was like a page.
And what led you to go like towards towards graduate studies instead of just like going and working? Because probably you could have gotten like, some good work even in your freshman year, right?
I loved learning, and there's like so much to learn, and you only get to be at school once, and I just want to take it all the way to master's and PhD.
Man, that's a fair point. I didn't finish school and I kind of regret it, to be honest, man. Good call you did. And then while you were here, you spent like a couple years doing your PhD. And then how did the Google come up? Like, why did you decide to go there? What was the way you were thinking about it?
So I knew Lyra and Sergey from Stanford. I had met them like on campus, and actually, when I was about to graduate, even before I started applying to jobs, I got like two messages. One was from like Microsoft, and one was from Google. So I started interviewing with them, and then I got like two job offers. One was the Microsoft tablet team in Washington, and the other one was Google. And choosing Google was a really easy option because I already knew Google, the search engine. At the time, it was google.stanford.edu before it became google.com. I love the technology. I love that they were in Silicon Valley. I love the founders. And staying in the Bay Area helped me keep and maintain my friendships and relationships. So it was a very straightforward choice.
Yeah, which I agree 100% with the choice. And at this point, how big was Google? Like people
When I joined, I was employee 485.
Wow.
And back in the day, they would always like talk about the employee number, but now it doesn't matter because there are like tens of thousands of employees.
Man, 485. Wow, that was super early, man. And at this point, like, what was kind of the culture like in Silicon Valley? Like, overall, I don't know, I feel like the culture in Silicon Valley a little bit today with, like, engineers and stuff is kind of like there's so much money and so many people trying to poach each other every time, that a lot of people kind of became mercenaries instead of missionaries. Do you feel like at this point it was different, or?
The culture has changed tremendously. Back in the day, it was all about creating a beautiful product and making a difference in people's lives. It was about like providing an amazing user experience. And at Google, it was fantastic seeing like all these products launched, right? When I was at Google, Google News launched, Google Maps launched, like Gmail launched, Orkut.com launched, and those are very exciting times. If you look at entrepreneurs now, it's a very different type of like mentality. Instead of like trying to create a better world or make a difference in people's lives, people are more focused on how can I become a unicorn? How can I make an exit and tons of money? Like, when can I get my first Tesla? So the whole mentality has shifted tremendously. And it's kind of like interesting, like not that long ago, all the pitch decks had the word crypto in them. And now they replaced all the words of crypto with like AI, and all the startups are pitching AI. So people tend to pick like whatever has the most chance to become the next big thing, because they really care about the wealth it provides, not the value that it provides.
Man, it makes perfect sense. But what do you feel that led to this? Was it like excessive capital? Was it like other people moving here? What do you think that kind of like happened over time?
I think a lot of it's like social media. So when we talk about like physical capital, it refers to the physical objects that we own, right? When we talk about social capital, it's the relationships between individuals and the trust that comes from it. And social capital has been in a huge decline over the decades, and a big culprit is social media. Back in the day, for instance, when Orkut.com was around, our whole focus was connecting people. And everyone remembers Orkut as a platform where they met friends, right? They met their best friend, they got their dream job, they fell in love and got married and had kids. And that should be like the purpose of social media. It should be to connect people, empower communities, and create a better world. But if you look at social media today, something like really interesting happened, and it goes all the way back to like 2009. Before like 2009, social media and social networks had a simple feed that has a set of like posts that were organized by time. So the latest post would be on top, and oldest one would be on the bottom, and it was very predictable. What happened in 2009 is Facebook introduced the like button, and soon after, Twitter introduced the retweet button. And then Facebook introduced a similar feature, the share button. And something went terribly wrong. As an unexpected consequence, these services gave user the power to influence others, whether their posts became viral or popular. And from that on, meaningful connections no longer mattered. It was just about engagement. It was just about numbers. So all these like algorithms are reordering the flat hierarchy of credibility. A post, no matter how harmful, fake it was, it could be on the top of your feed as long as it generated engagement. And posts that triggered engagement and emotions, especially anger, were the ones that were most likely to be shared. And as a result, these algorithms completely change the way we are living and also the way we are interacting with people.
And why do you think that like these fake news and all these negative posts, they do so well overall? Like, why do you think humans are naturally attracted to this?
It's also like news. If you think about like TV or radio or the newspaper, right? They always tend to have stories that are like super controversial, and oftentimes it's like bad stories because it gets like people's attention. It's like disaster stories, right? And in social media, there is a tremendous amount of technology that's incorporated in it that includes machine learning and AI. And these technologies curate our feeds, the feeds we scroll the like day and night every day. And what people will notice is that these algorithms are optimized for engagement and virality. They're not engagement for connection. They're not optimized for community or happiness, and that's what makes social media incredibly harmful. And a really good example is like Instagram, for instance, right? The platform encourages people to present themselves in idealized ways. You go on Instagram and you see people looking perfect, acting perfect, going on like perfect vacations, having perfect sets of friends. And what happens is like people look at that content and they feel like they are missing out, and then they can never be intelligent enough or good enough or loud enough. And as a result, we have a society that's like very insecure and has a really hard time connecting. And like all these consequences also relate to the mental health epidemic. When you look at the mental health in general, not just in the United States but in the world, it started like plummeting the past 2 decades. And the start of the mental health epidemic is 2010, which is like really interesting.
Like button?
uh,
No, share button, right? 2010?
Yeah, so like the algorithms change in like 2009, right? And in 2010, we start having these massive like mental health issues. So two things happened in 2010. One was the algorithms changed, right? And then there was a mass adoption on smartphones. Like back in the day with like flip phones, you could not be on social media. But with the global rapid change to smartphones, people are able to use social media all the time. And this is not a coincidence.
So you were talking about that most social media companies, they're optimized kind of like for time on screen, and like spending time and giving them more money with the ads. What do you think are the actual metrics that social platforms should be? Because like you can't even call Instagram a social platform anymore, I think, right? Because like they're so optimized to not showing content of your friends anymore and just like what's viralizing and stuff, as you were saying.
It's all for influencers, right?
Exactly. So what are the true metrics of a social network company?
So with like all the social media platforms I created and worked on, including Orkut.com, our metrics was like happiness, and you can measure like happiness and connection qualitatively and quantitatively. And you can actually like optimize for happiness. And it's just an algorithm, right? What's the algorithm's purpose? And the algorithm's purpose right now in these like social media platforms is just revenue. How do you increase revenue? You increase it by modifying user behavior so that they click on ads more. We live in a surveillance capitalism environment. Every human experience is turned into data, and then the data is used to create models for each human to predict their behavior. And since people make decisions in predictable ways, companies are able to manipulate users with data. And a lot of what's happening on social media is this manipulation that people are not aware of, and it's all because of the greed that companies have. And if you look at the past, actually, the story is so familiar. Back in the day, tobacco companies published articles saying that smoking is not harmful, right? And now we know for a fact that smoking
Is
harmful and kills people. The big pharma said that opioids are not addictive, but now we know that the opioids are highly addictive, and like tons of people like overdose because of it. And social media is not that different. The companies know that their algorithms are creating massive amount of anxiety, depression, and even leading to suicide in teenagers. But do they do something about it? They are not motivated because they would make less revenue.
And what do you think like should be different? For example, like how could a new social network come today and it is being optimized for happiness? Like how does this manifest?
The best example is Orkut, actually.
Awesome.
So it had ads, and nobody even remembers that there were ads. They were on community pages, and it used AdSense technology. So when you are looking at a community, let's say for like running, you would see like Adidas running shoe ads, right? So we used ads to actually promote brands and create synergy between companies and users, and it made the experience much better. And Orkut.com was like tremendously profitable. And if you look at social media platforms today, they are like in, you know, crazy profitable, but there's no reason to be greedy. You know, you can still have like a immensely profitable business, but not like hurt people's health and their well-being.
But overall, you feel like if you're optimizing too much for revenue, the undeniable fate is that you're gonna end up not optimizing for happiness when you're building a social media company.
So you can optimize for happiness and be like super lucrative. You
And
don't have to optimize for like, engagement and ads, you know.
So in Orkut, for example, like what would the main like metrics? You said that you can measure happiness like quantitatively. Like how would you guys do that? I was super curious about this.
Oh, so you can look at when people join communities. You can look at what kind of like content they create. You can see how people become friends and start sharing content and messaging each other. We did like so much research and work to make the communities better. For instance, we looked at how communities were related. So when you looked at communities, it would tell you like related communities, would recommend you communities to join. So all the work and effort we put into features was actually to empower users' connections. And we never tried to optimize it to increase like revenue or more ad clicks. It was all about like creating a better world out there by connecting people. Because like back in the day before the internet, the set of people we could meet were super limited, right? It was your friends and family, neighbors, classmates, co-workers, and
Friends of
maybe you meet
friends.
someone at a bar or the restaurant. But with the internet, the possibilities like immense. And I can tell you stories from like Orkut.com. A friend of mine, he's Canadian. He met this girl in Brazil on Orkut, and then they start like chatting, they start visiting each other, and now they're like married with like kids. Another story is a friend of mine who lived in New York, and he met his girlfriend on Orkut who was in Estonia, and now they're like happily married with like two kids. So the stories are endless where people actually met each other across continents and they became best friends, or they got a new job, or they started creating families.
And was it over the communities? The Canadian guy met the Brazilian.
Oftentimes it's in a community. You have something in common that brings it together, and that's a community.
Yeah, let's go to the early beginnings of Orkut. What's kind of like your first epiphany? Like, what was kind of like the first feature that you built?
Oh, so I would have to rewind you to Stanford, actually.
Okay.
So I joined Stanford as a graduate student. And during my studies, I noticed that most undergraduate made friends in their freshman year, in their immediate vicinity, in their dorms, and in their fraternities. And it seemed like such a circumstantial and narrow way to meet people. I noticed that the friends that they made were the friends they kept rest of college and even the rest of their lives. And I thought, you know, like coming from Europe, having an international background, I never had problem starting a conversation with a stranger or making friends. But what I noticed was I made most of my friends through friends and friends of friends. And with that insight, I decided to launch a social network for the Stanford community. I named it Club Nexus. And
Oh, I see. So it was for friends of friends in Stanford.
yeah, so that was my insight. So I launched an online social network called Club Nexus. And we signed up like half the undergraduates just in a couple of weeks. And that was before anyone had heard of social networking. There was no Facebook, no MySpace, no Friendster. It was like the first like social network. And after that, I was about to graduate, and I want to keep my connections and friendships I made at Stanford. So I created a social network called In Circle for Stanford alumni.
In Circle.
In Circle.
Okay, so Club Nexus was for the people that were studying
Stanford,
at that
yeah.
point, only for Stanford. Was it kind of
Undergraduates and graduate students.
like only Stanford emails kind of things, or like
So
invite only?
initially, it could be any email, but then we had like a lot of people outside of Stanford trying to join, so we limited it to Stanford emails.
Oh, I see. Did you end up launching like other universities or just Stanford for Club Nexus?
So I joined Google right after Stanford. I launched In Circle for the Stanford alumni, and at Google, they had a time policy. Employees could spend up to 20% of their time pursuing personal projects. And I really wanted to give everyone in the world the opportunity to connect online, not just a smaller niche community like Stanford or Stanford alumni. So I talked to my manager. It was Jan Fitzpatrick at the time, and
What's his name? Fitzpatrick?
Jan Fitzpatrick.
Save Jan Fitzpatrick.
And I said, I want to work on a social network during my 20% time, and she said, go ahead. And
Sorry, so it's 20% of your time at Google?
At
or?
Google.
Okay.
So I was the only engineer, only designer. I even went to data center and physically set up the servers.
This for InCircle?
This is for Orkut.com.
Oh, for Orkut. Okay. So you said there were 4 social networks, right? So the first one's Club Nexus, then InCircle.
Then Orkut.
Then Orkut. Oh, there's a 4th that came after Orkut.
Right.
Okay, so let's keep that for later. All right. So wait, so InCircle was kind of like an evolution of Nexus, or was it something separate?
Oh, it kept improving, right? With like every social network, I gained more insight, and every social network I launched was like better for it. And with Orkut.com, we had a dog food where we tested out with like employees, and they said, "Oh, this looks great. Let's launch it." And I had a meeting with Eric Schmidt, who was a CEO at the time, and Marissa Meyer, who was head of like consumer products. And they said, "Why don't we just name it Orkut? It's a 5-letter unique word. You're the only person who worked on it, and you have the domain." So like last minute, they decided to launch it globally. With the name Orkut.com.
What do you feel about that?
I mean, in the meeting, I thought they were joking and they were serious. I still can't believe it got launched as my name.
It is such a good name, man. Honestly, like, it was so viral, the Orkut. So well known, man. What was so you evolved? Like, what were the features at this point? Like, what would it do? Did it have the scraps?
I experimented with like a lot of like features at Stanford Club Next and also with like InCircle. But one feature that always stood out was communities. And if you look at like the design of Orkut.com, friendships, connections are very powered and put on front, and also communities. So whenever you looked at someone's profile, you would see their friends, and also you would see the communities they belong to. And communities was a really big part of the experience. And it was also a very positive experience. So you could like look at someone and tell like how trustworthy, cool, or sexy they are. So it had like ratings, and it is a very happy experience.
Oh, that's interesting, man. So community was kind of like the big thing that you brought next once you were at Google, like.
It was a cornerstone, the Orkut communities. Yeah.
I see. And what were the first communities that kind of show up? Do you remember, like, a little bit? Like, people were, like, creating all these new communities. Like, what were...
There were so many, but some of them got more popular than others. Like, there was one community that said, like, I hate Mondays with, like, a Garfield cover. There was one Brazilian community that said, I find beans in my ice cream cup. You might have heard of this.
Beans in the ice cream cup?
It turns out like people freeze beans in ice cream containers. So
yeah. I hate that.
So people go to the fridge, open the can of like ice cream, and it was like beans, not ice cream in them.
I know that it was like very popular, mostly popular in Brazil and India, right? Or
actually, it was like popular in U.S., in Japan, like all over the world. But soon after we launched, we had tremendous scalability issues where we were not able to handle the demand. And as a consequence, the site became very slow and started giving tons of errors. And very infamous error message we had was, bad server, no donut for you. And during that time, we lost a lot of our user base in US and Japan and many countries. And...
so it was very explosive growth. Like
very explosive. And everything was built with Microsoft technologies. It was Windows servers. It was Microsoft SQL Server. It was like .NET and C#. And we went to like Redmond. We talked to the Microsoft folks. There was just not a feasible way to scale it. So we had to re-architect and rewrite everything in Java and C++ using Google infrastructure. And that transition took like an entire year.
Wow.
And that's when we lost like a lot of these countries. And people always talk about Brazil and India. One of the big reasons is they have a huge internet population. It was also like the number one social network in Estonia, for instance, but people don't talk about Estonia because
Less
the
people.
population is just like millions, right?
Oh, I see. So in these countries, like after people had like these bugs, they kind of like didn't come back in many countries.
Right, and you see that happen like many times, right? Like France is a good example where they had a lot of issues with like scalability, and once people leave, it's hard to get them back, and it's a really good lessons for like entrepreneurs. You don't want to wait too long to launch, but you want to make sure that when you launch, you can handle like tons of users. Actually, not being able to meet the demand of like many users is worse than not having any users.
Yeah, because then a lot of people are pissed at you instead of
Exactly.
not anyone knowing you. But how was like this beginning? Like you had this conversation, and you're like, okay, so it's gonna be called Orkut. Let's launch. Like,
So we had a dog food at Google. Everyone loved it. They said, let's launch it to everyone. And then I had a meeting with Eric and Maurice, and they said, let's name it Orkut. Then we just launched it. And I told them, look, the whole website is running on one computer, and it can maybe handle 200,000 users. And like right after we launched, we had like 500,000,
and what was the launch? Was it like a huge email to a lot of people, like press, or like what was?
It was just like Googlers inviting their friends. So the core set of users were Googlers.
And where would they find, like on Google, like by themselves, or?
So Google is a very international company, right? So Google had a lot of employees all over the world, and they invited their friends.
Oh, I see. So like all the people that were working there at this point, they just invited like all their friends, and people just started joining, and the network effects were starting to be built. Oh man, that must have been crazy, man.
It was crazy because it was like a never-ending struggle to meet the like demand because we had so many page views. At one point, we had as many page views as like Google search. That's how big it was.
Wow, that's insane. Because Google people would do like 1 or 2 views a day, and at Orkut they would do like thousands of views, like hundreds at least. Man, like, what did you do? Did you just buy like a bunch of computers, or you just like the?
So we had to rewrite everything from scratch using Java, C++. So instead of having like PCs and Windows machines, we would have like Linux servers, and it would use like Google technologies or like MySQL instead of Microsoft SQL.
And then like how many people were working in it at this point? Like just you, or
It was just like me, and then we got like a second engineer. It was like 2 of us, and then we started getting more people, but it was never like a giant team. At one point, we had like 20 people.
Okay, so the max that Orkut ever had was 20 people?
20, 30, not many.
Wow, that's crazy, man. Like for the size of the scale, right?
What's even more incredible is it took Facebook 6-7 years to catch up with Orkut in Brazil, where we had like not a big team. Google spent no effort or money, to promote Orkut. And still, it was like number one in Brazil for 6-7 years.
For so long, man. And I miss it, man. I'll be honest. It was the best time we ever had. Because as you were saying, you were optimizing for happiness. Now they
There
just
were happy times, right?
Yeah, no, it's kind of like drugs. They just want to get you addicted all the time, man. I miss you. But I'll be honest, Orkut, there's something that I have to say for the Brazilian people, man. Like, who designed the new Orkut, man? We did not like it. You know the round 2 when you guys did like the revamp of the new UI.
I hated it too. They got like designers, and they did not do a good job.
They kind of try to make it like Facebook in a way, right?
Yeah. So see, I joined Google as a software engineer, and I worked on Google Search. I worked on images. I worked on the one bar on top. I worked on Google Video. But as an engineer, the power is limited in terms of like making decisions for product, right? So I said, look, like I don't agree with like a lot of these creative decisions that the product managers are making, because I would make them like completely differently. So I left the Orkut team to become a product manager. I joined Marissa Meyer's team in the consumer, and I became a product manager because it's really
for Orkut or no?
For many different products, but not for Orkut, because I had to like become a product manager and then go back to the Orkut team.
Okay.
So I joined Marissa in the consumer team, and I was a product manager for like many products, and it was an amazing experience learning how to be like a product manager, and it was a whole set of skills I had my whole life from like growing up from the day I started like programming, right, and I already had the expertise from like Club Nexus and in Circle and Orkut.com, and for me it was a very natural transition.
And then you became a product manager, like doing all these different products. Then you come back to Orkut, or?
Then something else happened. Google made social a priority, and they decided to add a layer of social on top of all Google products, right? So social would be integrated to
This was Google Plus, or no?
yeah, Google Search and Photos and all these different offerings they had, and they named it Google Plus. And with Google Plus, it was a whole different offering, right? Because it wasn't like its own brand, its own social network. It was a part of Google. It was social, but it wasn't really social. The features were confusing, like the circles especially. And when Google Plus happened, a lot of like projects at Google that got discontinued because it would conflict with Google Plus. It sends a confusing message when you have like multiple
Networks.
products that have the same offering, right? So as a result, because of like Google Plus, Orkut got discontinued.
Man, it must be very clear that was a really bad decision.
It was like one of the like saddest days of my life, but it was an executive decision, and there was like nothing I could do about it.
But at this point, when it was discontinued, like people were kind of like shifting outside of it already, right?
Right, because
Because
social
of
was not a priority, and like Google didn't put like much resources into Orkut, right? So everyone moved on to like Facebook and other services.
Man, I truly think that Orkut 2.0 was the issue, man. Like, it would have beaten Facebook if it hadn't changed, you know? If it just kept being, like, it was amazing as it was, man. They started, like, adding, like, all these new, like, trying to make it Facebook, and it became bad. Man, I didn't know that. So they just kind of, like, pretty much said, like, you weren't making the decisions for the product that you created, and they were like, okay, if you want to make decisions, you have to become a product manager. It's kind of like that?
Yeah, pretty much.
And then but you got to be a product manager elsewhere. And this thing that you're the person in the world that mostly understands it, like you're not going to be here anymore.
Because you need to learn the craft, right, to become a product manager. Like to be a software engineer, I have a degree in computer science, so I can start as a software engineer. But if you want to be a product manager, you need to have like the experience of being a product manager. So that's why I decided to have a shift in my career and become a product manager, so I can also have power over creative decisions like features and such.
Man, this is very interesting. But do you feel like this experience in product management is actually like very required to make the best product decisions? Because I feel like at Orkut, you were probably making the best decisions without having this product manager experience.
I was, until we started getting product managers. And man, let me tell you something. Like, we got some really bad product managers. Like, some of them had never used a social network their entire lives. They never used like even like Orkut.com or Friendster. And you have people that become in charge of a product and they have like no experience in the space. And that's what actually prompted me to become a product manager.
So you went like, okay, can beat him, join. I'm going to become a product manager and then come back and
exactly.
fix it. And you didn't make it in time in the end. Oh, man, because I have this whole thing with product managers, man, because I really don't understand what they do. So when you want to try and like, kind of like define the work of the product manager? Like,
of course, a product manager is almost like a mini CEO, and they are in charge of like the vision, the feature set, and like the product, and they integrate it with like many teams, right? They constantly meet with designers for the look and feel. They meet with like engineers, and they also meet with like salespeople and marketing people and like legal people. And the product manager oftentimes like decides on the roadmap for the product, and that's how like features get decided and built. And like good product managers, they lead by example, and when they make those decisions, they get input from the team.
I see. So the most important thing that they're doing overall is making the right decisions for the product and talking to all the other teams so that the rest of the team doesn't have to do that.
Right.
Sort of.
A lot of like coordination. You know.
A little bit of coordination.
Yeah.
Yeah. But do you feel like an early stage company, like the CEO should kind of like be the product manager for a while, right?
That's correct. And the CEO can also be like an engineer in early stage. And until you get to like 15 or 20 people, it's completely normal for the CEO to do a lot of like engineering work, like the coding or UI design and all these other things.
Because there's nothing else more important than building the product, right?
Exactly. The most important thing.
Oh, I see, man. And today, like, and at this point, like, what happened afterwards? So they closed Orkut. You were working on something else already at this point as a product manager. Like, how did it go from there?
So that's when the story of like Hello starts.
Perfect.
So something interesting happened during that journey. Like social media became toxic. Social media has poisoned us all. You know, it is shame and isolation and like depression and anxiety and unhappiness and like mental health issues and even like suicide. So I left Google with my coworker John to redefine the landscape of social media, to create a platform that focuses on positivity, connection, and community. And we started experimenting and innovating with a mobile app under the brand Hello. And we launched Hello in Brazil, and we had around like 2 million pilot users. And we looked at like data, right? We are both scientists, and I'm like a computer scientist, data scientist, social scientist, and we look at science. So we looked at qualitative, quantitative data. We did a lot of like user interviews. We did a lot of like surveys. And
sorry, did you launch this in Brazil? In Brazil and other places as well, or mostly in Brazil?
Mostly in Brazil.
And why did you choose to launch another?
I love Brazil.
Yeah,
and it had such a huge community on Orkut, and we did like a limited launch in US with like friends and family. We tested the product with a couple of like colleges, and then we decided to like launch in Brazil when we were ready.
And what was the kind of like this crappy, terrible MVP?
So it was all mobile actually, because Orkut.com was all desktop based, right? It was a whole different era, and now everyone has a smartphone. So it was a mobile app on iOS and Android, and it focused on happiness and connection and community. And we took the communities of Orkut.com and made them like 10 times better by introducing a top level of categories that we call like personas. And when we talked to our users, they told us like 3 things. The first one was, when I open the app, it makes me happy, which is like so important, right?
And why does it make you happy?
It makes them happy.
What happens?
Because of the content. When you look at social media today, when you are scrolling, it makes you miserable because you always feel like you're missing out, or you're always like seeing ads,
or that you're fat, or that you're old, you know.
Exactly.
It's just like everybody's living the perfect life except for you. Well, so when you go Hello, what do you see?
You see like genuine, authentic content, and we created a platform that focused on authenticity. And we reinforce positivity and reward like genuine interactions. The second people said was, it introduces me to content and communities that I'm passionate about and I'm interested in, which means that our feed was actually doing its job. And the third thing was fascinating. They said, I'm actually making friends and meeting them in real life, you know. So we had people who moved in together, who became like great friends, or who got like married. We had like all these like success stories with Hello, and we proved that you can actually use, you know, machine learning and artificial intelligence and create an algorithm that actually brings people together.
And who like is most of the content published by the other users, right?
It's all published by
other
users, yeah.
Right? And I imagine it's not the same content as there is in other platforms, right? So how different, like how's the content? Like what are usually people posting?
So first of all, we didn't believe in like filters. You should just post things as they are.
Raw.
Right? And then we didn't optimize for like engagement or likes. So the feed we had was like chronologically ordered, and we also surfaced things that we thought people would be interested in by empowering like communities even more. And it has a really profound like impact on our user base.
Okay, so you go in and you see like posts that other people are making as well without any filters or anything, but like what's kind of like the culture, you know, like what are
Oh, it's more fun and playful. The way that Orkut.com was, or the way that like Tumblr was, for instance. Like people are very like friendly and welcoming and funny.
Oh, it's such a better vibe then, man.
It's such a different vibe. Like you go on like Instagram today, and it's all like influencers, and it's like horrible. All of these people are like scam artists, and there was like one big influencer on. She had like a YouTube channel. She was giving like parenting advice, and then she gets arrested for abusing her own like children. So these are like the type of influencers we have, right? Like.
Wow.
I mean, there are so many examples. Like Paul Logan, like is another one. Like these influencers have like 30 million followers, and then they are involved with like the like crypto scheme or like energy drinks or whatever it is. And then you see like influencers like Jay Shetty, who have like tens of millions of followers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you find out it's like all like orchestrated. It's all like a facade. It's not like real. And that's what happens today. The 13-year-old teenager gets up from bed. She takes a shower. She makes her hair. She puts on like freshly pressed pajamas on. She goes back in bed. She takes a selfie. And then she says, I woke up like this. And then what happens? All her friends are looking at her picture. And they're like, crap, I look like horrible when I wake up, right? That's what social media turned into. And one of the things I noticed was on like Facebook, for instance, like the more I look at what my friends are posting, the less I like them, which is like a horrible thing to say, but we're
destroying
actually
friendships.
it is like destroying friendships because everyone's like trying to compete. A good example is like when the cathedral burned down in France, right? My feed was filled with people posting in front of the cathedral, and saying, oh, I'm so sorry for the cathedral. But it was just like humble bragging. Okay, so you went to like France, you took a picture of the cathedral, and the fire gives you like an excuse to brag about it. And I feel like that's what social media has like turned into. It's just like bragging. It's not about being authentic or being true to ourselves. So.
And do you feel like, I don't know, maybe most social medias kind of will always go this way if you have the incentives towards kind of like becoming more and more popular and like becoming famous instead of just connecting, or no?
It doesn't have to. It all depends on how you design it and how you architect it.
But do you believe like there should be like influencers in Hello, for example, like with a huge following basis, or should it be mostly about like the friends and communities?
We care about like influences, right? If someone is an expert in fitness or education or like mental health or like biology, we want to have these people. We want to follow these people and see like what they stand for and see what they have to say, and that's like totally normal. But the type of influencers we see on social media are like completely different. They are just trying to get likes. That's all it is. Like they're trying to get likes. They're not trying to create a better world. They're not trying to create a community. They just want to have like tons of followers so they can be a brand ambassador and get like profit from sponsors
all the time, right? That's all it's optimizing for. And in the communities, like, what are the largest communities today in Hello? A few that you came to mind, or no?
Like Netflix was a huge community in Brazil. Like there's like a huge following, And things around like animals are like always like very popular. Things around music are always very popular.
What are your communities? Like the ones that you can like take part on.
I'm a nerd at heart, so I love sci-fi. I love comic books. I love like math, for instance, right? But I also love like fitness, and I love like mixology. I love like windsurfing, and I have a whole set of like different like passions, and I join those communities.
Oh, it's a lot of different hobbies, man. Like, it's kind of like, do you keep learning a little bit of everything, or like, are these mostly like you go all the way? Like, are you like a hardcore sci-fi person today, you know, or?
I would say I'm like pretty hardcore.
Yeah. Like in a conversation about this, you wouldn't be left behind.
No, not at all. I can tell you like all the like sci-fi shows that are happening. I can tell you like which ones are the best ones. You know.
This is interesting. The same thing for comics, or no?
With comics, I read a lot of like comics. Yeah.
Where's your favorite comics that you read today?
I love like the Saga comics. I highly recommend them. I read like a lot of like X-Men, and there's like so many of them. There's one called like Why the Last Man, which is also like really like fantastic. There are really good comics out there.
I mean, I'll get into it because I'm a nerd, but on the Japanese side, you know. So I I read a lot of manga.
Oh, I will send you like a list.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna ask you for this afterwards because it's such good content that I have never accessed before, you know, and like years and years of on the making, right?
Yeah.
Like in the world of comics, are there like multiple other than the ones that are more popular, like DC and Marvel, like?
Yeah, there's like Dark Horse comics. There's like Image comics. There are a lot of different like genres, and some of the really good ones become like TV shows. And the same thing with like video games. Have you been watching Fallout?
No.
Oh, it's incredible. It's like a sci-fi TV show on Amazon Prime, and then they did an amazing job creating that world.
Man, I want to watch them. You have good reviews. And what do you like in sci-fi usually? What is kind of like, where do you go to? Futuristic?
Futuristic. As a kid, I read a lot of like the Isaac Asimov books. So when Foundation came out, I was like super excited, and they did a incredible job with the show. Battlestar Galactica is really good. And
Man, so enlighten me as a noob. Like, are these like classics?
They are like classics, and some of them are pretty recent. Like Expanse is like very recent. It's really good too. Yeah, I would highly recommend like Foundation, Expanse, Battlestar Galactica.
And what's kind of like the theme? You know, is it like space? Is it more like society with gadgets?
Some are more like society oriented. Some are more space oriented.
And how do you? Which one do you feel like is portraying pretty well how you think the world is going towards?
That's a good one. But with like Battlestar Galactica, it's like the end of the Earth, and like people are trying to survive in space. So that's interesting premise. With Foundation, it spans like hundreds and hundreds of years, and that's kind of like interesting, where you see like a galactic empire with like millions of like planets, right? And then there are shows that are more limited in terms of like the space, like with like Expanse, for instance. There is only like Earth, there is Mars, and then there are like the Belters who work like within asteroid fields.
So most of them are galactic, right? So there are about space in the world.
Yeah.
In the universe.
And then you have like Fallout, which takes place on Earth, planet Earth.
And like on the futuristic stuff that's happening today, like AI, kind of like all the VR revolutions. What are you spending most of your time kind of thinking about recently?
So AI is interesting, you know. ML and AI have been around for a very long time, and like AI is the reason why we have these like massive depression, anxiety, mental health issues, right? Because that's what companies use to optimize the feeds. And if you think about like Twitter, if you think about Instagram, TikTok, you're spending all your time looking at your feed. So it really matters how that feed is curated. It's all about the algorithms, right? Mm-hmm. But people didn't talk about like AI that much. But something incredible happened recently. One was the AI models became a lot easier to train, and that was a result of like the Transformer paper by Google engineers and researchers. And when you think about AI, what we're seeing with like ChatGPT is a really smart autocomplete. You know, like we already had like our phones completing words and sentences, and they basically solved the problem of the human language. And how did they solve it? By having these like large language models and training it with billions and billions of like documents. So you have a tool like ChatGPT, you're asking a question and it gives an answer, and it's not a like smart thing. It's not an intelligent being coming up with that answer. It's just that we solved how human language works, and if you train it with like enough data, that's what results you get. And it's really incredible how good it is, right?
Very much.
Like it is like enormous, and you're seeing the same thing applied to images, and now you're seeing the same thing applied to like videos. It's going to be like very exciting times. But like, let me tell you something. Like, I think it's like overrated in some way if you compare it to human beings. So if you're a teenager, you can take like 5 hours of driving lessons and you can start driving a car, right?
Tesla cannot say the same.
So you have these like self-driving cars. Companies have been working on it for like 10 years.
Spending billions.
They have all these like sensors, right? They have all these cameras. They have all these like training data, and they still can like drive properly. There was like a event where there were so many like self-driving cars that they lost there were so many attendees at the concert that the self-driving cars lost contact with the headquarters, right? So they weren't able to like talk to the main brain, and they just like stopped in the middle of the road. So a lot of these like self-driving technologies, they can't even like function if they're not like on the internet.
And how do you feel like this class of operations is different? Like humans are much better at it, while other operations, technology is much better. Like
humans are so much better at like everything and learning, but a human can't remember billions of documents, right? But that's what you are seeing with like ChatGPT, and you see like articles or even like entire books written by like ChatGPT, but when you read it, it doesn't have like a soul because it doesn't have that creativity. It doesn't have like the empathy, right? It's not generated by a like human being. It's generated by a computer, and the computer is able to generate it by looking at what's been done in the past by all that training data, that machine learning. It's not able to actually like come up with something on its own.
So overall, would you say that the things that machines are much better at today are things that require a lot of data memorization and data processing, whereas humans are much better in whatever is related to decisions, or no?
Like making decisions, anything that's like creative, whether it's like creating new products, creating art, or like writing books, like literature, art, music.
Have you been building with Gen AI recently, or not much?
Yeah, definitely. I think like we all use like Gen AI and ChatGPT now.
I know, like building like AI products for Hello or something. Or
we do have AI and ML in Hello, and it's all to optimize for happiness.
Optimize for happiness, right? But like with the Gen AI, you guys see anything interesting?
We don't have like Gen AI in the sense that we don't create like content, like image content using AI, and the future of like social media is bleak right now. If you look at like Facebook and Instagram, for instance, on Facebook there are so many images created by Gen AI, right? And they look like real, and a lot of people can't even tell the difference.
Can you?
Did you see like?
I can. I cannot.
I can most of the times, but a lot of like boomers, millennials can't even tell the difference, right? And you go to Instagram, there are all these influencers, right? Where they're like posting, let's say, on the beach with a bikini, and then you look at it, you're like, wait a minute, that's not actually a real person. That's generated by AI. And then they're posting every day, and they're responding to comments, but it's not an actual human being. It's AI generated model. And that's the last thing you want to have in the social network. Like, you don't want to be talking to like chatbots and robots. And that's what social media is like leaning towards. Like, when you look at your feed next time you're on Facebook and Instagram, like, have like dots. When you look at an image, like, think about, like, is this actually real or is it AI generated? Like, sometimes you can't tell the difference.
And the tendency is to be more and more AI generated, right?
Because it's so easy. Right, you just write a prompt and it will generate the perfect image or the perfect like video.
Yeah, but on the other way, it's kind of like AI is also something that makes it easy for you to manifest your imagination into reality. Let's kind of say like that, right? With image generation, or like you're okay.
Yeah, if you're not an artist and if you want to see a picture of like a raccoon having margaritas during Cinco de Mayo, you can just like write a prompt on ChatGPT and it will create the image, you know?
Yeah, but the way I'm thinking about it, it's kind of like take comics for example, right? So imagine if like every single comic could be like an animation, and like that kind of content is being posted on like Instagram, for example. That would be healthy, right? I believe.
Not really. Like, but when you post, when you get like comments, it matters if the comment is from an actual person, if it's like authentic. Like when I say, "Oh man, like I love that like vacation picture of you posted, right, at Rio, for instance." That is like meaningful because I actually looked at the picture. I'm your friend and I like it. But what if you had like random bot like commenting on your picture, like dude, that's like lit? Would that have like value?
It has no value.
No value, zero.
Yes. So definitely like the comment section in the should not have any bots going on for that, right?
It's kind of like interesting. You can look at the comment like ratio, and you can tell whether an influencer or a account is authentic or not. Because now you can spend like $100 and get like 10,000 like followers. I'm making this up, right? So you can get like millions of like followers by just spending money on these websites.
Man, and I'm kind of like a villain at this point because like my first company was actually an Instagram bot company, and now that I'm understanding more about the world, I'm feeling kind of bad about it. But we would make like fake likes and fake everything, and make money on top of it for Instagram. Then Instagram kind of like killed everything.
But if you don't do it, someone else will do it. You know. Yeah.
But they do it in Hello or not even?
So on Hello, we had like no bots, no abuse, no spam because we built the entire experience around like reputation. So when you become a user, when you start talking to people and interacting with content, you gain reputation, and based on that reputation, we decide how your content spreads. And that makes it like really hard for someone to just like join and start like posting like fake data or like data generated by AI.
How about like fake data overall? So like if someone posts something that's fake data, since you have like how reliable that person is, so it won't get any views, for example.
Right.
If it's from like a new person. And then like you build up your score by like interacting with other people.
Genuinely interacting with other people and content.
I see. And then you have like your own AI filters to see if people are like doing AI engagements.
That's
right?
correct. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Oh, interesting. And what are you guys like kind of like excited for the future? Like some things that you guys are building? Like
we had an amazing engagement with Hello. We had engagement that was better like a lot of the apps out there, like Twitter or Instagram or WhatsApp. And we decided to go to market.
So even though you're not optimizing for engagement, you still have better engagement.
We don't even have like videos. And if you look at social media platforms, half of the engagement comes from videos actually. So we sunset Hello, and we are going to relaunch next generation with a brand, which we haven't announced yet, but it's coming out soon.
Oh, so we don't know the name yet.
It's going to be number 5.
Oh, nice, man. Is it going to be adapted for new devices, or like what's kind of like the take?
So we are taking like all the learnings we had from Hello, and we are launching like a full product that's going to be available on like iOS, Android, web, and tablets. and it's optimized for like happiness, connection, and community.
And how about Hello? Like, I can still download it, right? Or
No, we sunsetted.
so what happened to Hello?
Uh, Hello was an incredible experience, but when we started looking at the brand, we decided that it wasn't the right brand. So hello, you might think that, oh, it's like such a common word. It's like one of like the words that everyone knows, like the Coca-Cola, but it's actually like super confusing. So you have the Hello magazine. There's a Hello Kitty. There's like a Hello social app that launched. There's like Hello Social. The Hello name is so polluted that as a social network, it doesn't work really well. And I think that's also one of the problems that the Google Plus had. The name had a problem because like when you think of like Google Plus, you don't think of like a
Social
social
network.
network. You think of like Google, which is like search, enterprise, productivity.
Yeah, I would think it's like a premium membership for Google or something, right?
So yeah, the Hello was not the right brand, but we had the right product, and we decided to like relaunch it.
Relaunch round 2 now with new name. Some new
New
features.
name, new
maybe?
features, take all our learnings.
Okay, now it's still secret everything, or
It's a secret.
can we tell anything on the what it's gonna look
Uh,
like, or get people excited?
Yeah, you can go to like the hello.com or orkut.com and enter your email, and we'll put you on the wait list.
Oh, amazing, man! And what are you mostly excited? Like, do you spend most of your days today working at this project? And
Yeah, I am still doing engineering, and I'm still doing product. So I write code every day. I love what I do.
Your co-founder as well?
Co-founder, yeah.
Both writing code?
Yes, my co-founder, he's the CTO, and I'm the CEO.
Oh, nice, man.
Mhm.
So is it the two of you, or you have more people today? What's the team looks like?
Yeah, we have more people, but our focus right now is to uh, create an app that actually makes a difference in people's lives. It's all about fixing social, because social is like very dark right now, and never in history did we need a positive social experience.
I was asking about the amount of people because, as you mentioned, like it was a very successful company with very few people, right? Well, here in Silicon Valley, the standard advice until like a couple of years ago was kind of like you gotta hire hundreds and hundreds of people if you want to grow, otherwise you can't do that.
Yeah.
Kind of like what's your philosophy on this today? Like on hiring and people.
I
and
don't think
managing?
you need like a really big team. Like once you have like too many people, it becomes counterproductive. But you do want to have a big team if you need a lot of like sales marketing people. But for things like engineering or design, you don't want to have like too many people, because then you have like too many people like touching the same piece of code, or you have like too many designers who have like different opinions, and it can actually slow you down instead of like speeding you up.
Because instead of like just twice the amount of decisions being made, it's like
Yeah.
half because everybody wants to give their opinions on everything, and it becomes hard. Where do you feel like engineering teams become too big? Like kind of like 10 people sort of, or more or less?
Oh man, so like the Twitter app had over 100 iOS engineers, and the app is not that complicated. You don't need like 100 engineers.
What
You
do
need,
they
like,
do? That is,
I don't know. It's like mind-boggling, right?
Yeah.
Like
100 people working on the app. It has like
on the
5
iOS
features.
app, not even Android. It's just like iOS.
Yeah, so definitely don't know what this
Yeah.
many people do. I always ask this question, and like people always have a hard time explaining this. But I feel it's kind of like this thing where people that are not engineers, they say like, oh, one engineer does X, two engineers, 2X. You can never have
Oh,
too
it's
many
not like that
engineers.
at all.
But like, yeah, you have like the man-month myth, which is exactly that, right?
And also engineering is like interesting because you could hire like a star engineer that can be 10 times more productive as like a bad engineer, right? So when you hire, and that's like also an advice for startups, don't hire just like junior people. You also have to hire like very like top performers, because they would do the job that like 3 people or 5 people do.
What are like kind of like the archetype of the person that you usually like to work with? Like, are they gonna be like an Ivy League, worked at the top startups kind of thing, or?
I think like So as like a CEO, you need to like lead by example, and you need to have a vision, right? And when you bring people on board, they need to believe in the vision, because with like every company, there are times when it gets rough, and you want to make sure that the team is with you throughout the whole journey. And also, with like a startup, when you're hiring people, you want people who buy in the vision and also in the culture. And you have to create the company culture from like day one. And everything you do, like every time you have a meeting with your employees, like every time you communicate to your users or partners or customers, you are putting the culture out there. And company culture is like so important. And when you hire, you want to hire people that are a good fit for the culture, and one of like the most amazing things that Google did was, for instance, when we interviewed people, we also made sure that they were a good like culture fit.
And how would you do that? Like today, for example, what is what does the culture kind of look like, and how do you look for that in people?
So you want people who are like inclusive, for instance. You want people who work well in a team. You want people who won't like stab you in the back, or who won't take credit for things that they haven't done. You want to hire people who want to create a great product, but not like just show like good numbers, right? And you want people who believe in your vision and what you're like trying to accomplish with the company.
And do you evaluate it in the process just by kind of like talking to people? Do you have and you have kind of like, for all these things that you mentioned, you're usually seeking to understand, like, is this like a good person? Is this good person going to be good to work with? But like, is there like specific values that you guys kind of like go around?
Yeah, it's like really important to find out what drives someone, right? Like, especially with like our company, we are trying to make an impact on the planet, right? On society, on humanity. And that is like so important. Like, does a person believe in the power of like connection? Are they trying to create a better world? And that's like our like number one goal. And when you have a team that believes in the vision, you'll be like so much more productive, and you'll create amazing results.
Oh man, that's awesome. Man, I feel like I'm kind of like running out of questions. We've gone through the whole journey, and I feel like we have a good one. So for the last remark, there's something that we always ask our entrevistado, the person that we bring here to the podcast, which is what do you feel like is your superpower? Like, kind of like through all the things that you do, like what do you feel like you have that make you do well in life, sort of?
I think it's kind of like interesting. I will answer that in like two different ways. Like Spock from Star Trek, right? He has a Vulcan dad and a human mother. I feel like my whole life, I had the tension between those two worlds. Right? I'm a very logical person, very analytical, but at the same time, I have a lot of like empathy, compassion. I'm very like emotional. And I think that's like one of my superpowers, being very empathetic, but at the same time very like logical at the same time. And the other way to answer that question is, there are like the two forces that brought me here today, right? Which is, my passion for people. I really truly care about connecting people. And the second one is technology. Because I love like technology. I'm a nerd, and I think like it's the intersection of like technology and connection that makes me who I am, that makes my heart sing. And I dedicated my whole life to bring people together using technology.
Man, that's beautiful. I'm super excited for all the next things that you're gonna build, and super excited to try it out, and for the recommendations that I'm gonna ask for you later.
Sounds great.
Great to meet you, man.
Thank you so much.